Hello, Pittsburgh. I'm Zac Gibson, and this is TribLive's From the Newsroom podcast, bringing you top stories from TribLive.com. In higher education news, Seton Hill University in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, has decided to place its student-run newspaper on indefinite hiatus after last semester's temporary one in the fall. While the Setonian's shuttering came as a surprise to some students, university representatives and the organization's longtime advisor said the newspaper needs to change and the journalism major needs to regain student interest. TribLive reporter and 2022 through 2023 Daily Collegian editor-in-chief Megan Swift is here to discuss the story and analyze the fate of traditional journalism in today's new digital age. Hi, Megan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back on. So, this topic is something that we are both familiar with in some way. I was an assistant editor for Slippery Rock University's student-run newspaper, The Rocket, and you were the editor-in-chief at Penn State's The Daily Collegian. Tell me about the story at Seton Hill.
Yeah, for sure. At Seton Hill, the Setonian has been put on an indefinite hiatus, as you said, which came as a surprise to students. It was placed on a temporary hiatus last fall, but the English department faculty broke the news to the current editor-in-chief at the Setonian in an email acquired by TribLive. The email read, quote, "After much deliberation and in consultation with the provost's office, we have decided to put the Setonian on an indefinite hiatus. This decision was not made lightly, as we greatly value the publication's legacy and its continuing potential in fostering student creativity, critical thinking, and journalistic skills." So that email attributed the decision that was made to a variety of reasons, including, number one, no capacity among English faculty to put in the work necessary to advise the publication. Number two, the shift to digital formats. Number three, a broader lack of support for journalism and culture. Number four, a lack of students in the journalism major at Seton Hill. And number five, a lack of institutional clarity on the publication's editorial process and the role of the faculty advisor and university in content moderation.
Okay. It sounds to me like Seton Hill did put a lot of work into trying to figure out the best solution for the Setonian. Now, tell me about the direct impact of this shuttering. Who is this going to directly affect?
Yes. So I interviewed a student at Seton Hill. His name is Seth Stevens, and he said he was disturbed after learning that the student newspaper would be shuttered and go into that indefinite hiatus status. He said he believes the shuttering was a deliberate act of censorship by the university. He said, quote, "I was very frustrated and mad at the university for surrendering to these topics that I thought they held in such high regard," he said, which was in reference to Seton Hill's commitment to students to uphold free speech and liberal perspectives, he said. However, Seton Hill denied any allegations of censorship, saying the hiatus is a direct result of the need to evaluate how best to move forward with the publication, given that it does not currently have a faculty advisor and the decline in student interest and involvement in recent years. The reason why Seth believed that the shuttering was a deliberate act of censorship by the university was because he alleged that the Setonian has always been, quote, "heavily screened" by the university, as the provost has final say over what is published. He said, quote, "The Setonian and all student newspapers are essential for free speech and the freedoms enjoyed by every American. The public deserves the right to know what happens at private universities like Seton Hill." Spokesperson Jennifer Rieger said students had not brought up censorship-related issues in discussions with faculty, however, as of Monday, January 27th.
It's my understanding that the Setonian only publishes once a semester, correct?
Yes. Currently, it only prints once a semester, and they are in the process of transitioning to a digital format, at least the proposal part of that process.
Okay, we'll touch on that a little bit later. Now, Seth graduates this coming spring, which means with the shuttering of the Setonian, he's lost his only opportunity to gain practical writing experience through Seton Hill in this format.
Correct. So Seth's only opportunity that he had to write journalistically while he was at Seton Hill was during a freshman year news, arts, and sports writing class, he told me. He said, quote, "I will never get feedback on my journalistic writing style because the Setonian has been removed."
Now, I'm sure you and I can both agree that through that time between the freshman year and the time to graduate, there's a lot of skill and foundational development that happens when it comes to learning the fundamentals of journalism, and not being able to have that tested or applied in any sort of practical matter, I think definitely would have had an effect on my development as a journalist and a writer. And as part of the newspaper, we absolutely value the importance of sharing the voices of the students. Slippery Rock University was a very ideologically diverse university, and it's something that I give a lot of the credit of my experience to, being able to practically break down the situations and different dynamics going on at Slippery Rock through the journalistic lens to prepare me for the professional journalism scene.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, the Daily Collegian at Penn State, it was very similar, and the Collegian has been going through some funding issues in correlation with the university, so it's definitely something that's affecting student newspapers across the board.
Now let's take a look at the national conversation around newspapers and what it looks like for journalism right now. In 2023, Seton Hill had an undergrad enrollment of just under 1,597. At the time of the Setonian's fall hiatus, the Setonian staff meetings had about 10 to 12 attendees per meeting. In your story, you also point to a lack of interest in the journalism major. You got to speak with the longtime advisor of the Setonian. What did he have to say?
Yes. So at the end of the 2023-24 academic year, the longtime advisor for the Setonian, Dennis Jers, an associate professor of English at Seton Hill, voluntarily stepped away from the position after serving in it for 21 years, he told me. He said, quote, "Student interest in journalism is not what it used to be. And though we have some great students, it was a lot of work for a small staff to put out a quality product."
Okay. And according to your story, there is currently no successor being chosen for that position. Jers also said that he sees this change as an opportunity for the storied publication to evolve. And we will talk about the evolution and change a little bit later on. But I have some stats that I want to bring in just to color the picture of undergraduates in the journalism field in the professional world for newsroom employees with journalism degrees. So in 2018, 3 in 10 college-educated newsroom employees had a degree in journalism. That made it the most common college major for these workers. Other common majors include communications, English language and literature, and mass media. About a quarter had something outside of these arts and humanities. Another 2020 study from Pew Research Center showed that college-educated newsroom employees tend to make less money than college-educated workers on the whole. The median earnings of newsroom employees with a college degree are about $52,000 a year compared to a roughly $61,000 a year for all college-educated workers, which is an interesting figure to think about in this position that we have. But does this kind of speak to that lack that we're seeing in enrollment in the major journalism specifically?
Yeah, that was something that Seth had echoed in his interview. Obviously, even though he's graduating this spring, he doesn't know exactly what career he wants to pursue yet, but he said it's possible he will end up in journalism in some capacity. And not being able to have that experience at the Setonian is definitely a detriment to his college career. He said, quote, "I truly believe that this is a pressing matter for every student on campus and for the public as well, for people to know about this censorship in journalism."
While it is unfortunate that Stevens will not get a chance to have this practical journalism experience, there is still hope for the Setonian. Soon we will talk about what a returning Setonian paper could look like. But on Monday, January 27th, Seton Hill told TribLive that it hopes to bring the paper back by this fall.
Yeah, so Rieger said in a statement, quote, "Seton Hill's English department faculty are taking the time this academic year to assess the current state of the publication and explore ideas on how to move it forward, especially in this age of digital media and in light of declining student interest." She said faculty are exploring a number of ideas, and the goal is to have a plan in place by the end of this semester to bring the Setonian back in some form by the fall of 2025.
Now, as we touched on earlier, Stevens said that students were already preparing to seek approval to transition the paper into solely a digital format rather than printing once per semester when they received this news.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why he said he was shocked, because they were in this process of putting a proposal together and they were going to talk to higher ups of the university to see if this transition could happen. And he said, quote, "Not a lot of people were reading the print format," which definitely echoes the reasons listed in the English faculty's email that announced the indefinite hiatus to the students. And he said, quote, "That's why we were moving to the digital format," which is also echoed in the statement provided by the university, saying that it's exploring ideas on how to move the paper forward, especially in this age of digital media and in light of the declining student interest. So these are all definitely aligning.
Okay. In that space of these compounding symptoms that led to the shuttering of Seton Hill's news program, it's a little signifier of what we are experiencing in our day-to-day of the changing face and inner workings of the news industry. Now, one more stat from Pew Research Center: in the last 5 years, news from social media and podcasts is on the rise, while websites and search have started to decline. Specifically, in the last 3 years, we've seen more of a stark rise in social media and podcasting as websites and search start to dip. Now, these figures are from 2024. 91% of U.S. adults aged 18 to 49 get their news from digital as a whole. Inside that, 71% get it from social media. In the 50 to 65 plus age group, 78% do the same in digital, and 36.5% from social media. Now, those are pretty big numbers, but to you, do they signify a change in the mediascape that we are experiencing?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we see day to day now, even with, me being hired as trending news reporter here at TribLive. I mean, it is an indicator that news formats are switching to that digital first mindset. And specifically, you see a lot of people aged 18 to 30 getting their news primarily from social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and then also X, Blue Sky, Threads. On those platforms, you also see that rise in citizen journalism too, because you have people who are just like on the street and documenting what's happening. Maybe they don't have a journalism degree or they don't work for an outlet, but they're posting that. And so people are getting news from not only, verified news outlets, but just people off the street. So news is definitely rampant on social media platforms.
At Slippery Rock, I experienced this change firsthand. I started as a converged journalism major. By the time I had graduated, the major had reformed into multimedia journalism. I was hired here as a multimedia content producer. And what I was taught through my time at Slippery Rock and with the Rocket was how to apply those journalistic fundamentals to the new age digital dissemination methods that we use today, largely through social media. And I think this is a conversation that not only we will see more of in Pennsylvania, but specifically with colleges, how to reform these programs to, one, gain interest once again in journalism, and what that looks like when applied to these practical experiences like the Setonian. Megan, thank you for coming on and bringing this interesting story from Seton Hill.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this week's episode, share the podcast to help keep Western PA locally informed with insightful discussion and the latest news from your area. It's an easy way to spread the word, and it helps our podcast reach more people like you. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and turn on episode notifications so you never miss new content. Once again, I'm Zac Gibson, and this is From the Newsroom.